Scrolling with Haley. Join Haley Caronia as she scrolls through the biggest headlines.
If you haven't watched this show before, we do blind reactions. I have not seen these videos, so I am seeing them for the first time with all of you. We're going to implement the tinfoil hat time segments and all the stuff you know and love. And I'm going to finish the show and answer some of your questions. Someone asked me what made you get into podcasting, and I was producing podcasts for other people. And I was like, I could do this for myself, and here I am.
Scrolling with Haley. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
12 o'clock, lunchtime here on Three Man Front. Hope everyone is doing well. Landry and Pat, Conrad and Molly. Charlie Potter talking Alabama. Coming up momentarily, Nathan King will talk Auburn at 12:30. Right now, very active Jocks text line. We asked the question of you. With all the conversation about jersey patches, corporate jersey patches for the upcoming college football season, we've already seen the Big 12 enter a partnership with Monster Energy if the SEC were to do the same, asking who are some of those corporate partners that they could link arms with. A lot of great ideas. Keep them coming in. 205-834-9450 on the text line.
Joining us now on the Higginbotham Hotline from Bama Online, part of the On3 network, Charlie Potter joins us here on Three Man Front. Charlie, I hope your summer's going well. I want to start with a pedestrian question about these sponsorship deals. I've not heard anything that if Alabama is kicking the tires about a potential sponsor, I guess, on their jerseys. Have you heard anything of the sort, or you think Alabama would be open to that, or you think that jersey that's a non-starter? We're not doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I see the traditional side of things, but just the way that college athletics is evolving and the direction it's heading, it feels more like an inevitability for everybody. I think with Alabama and just for lack of a better word, the plainness of its uniforms, the way that they keep it the same, I think it would have to be something kind of subtle. I've always thought that, like, given Nick Saban's relationship with the company, like the Mercedes logo would make a lot of sense. Like, I don't think they would go out and get something just super flashy. I think it would have to be pretty minimalistic. But yeah, I haven't heard anything in the works. That doesn't mean it isn't. But we'll see. Again, it feels like that's the direction everything's headed. I mean, you look at the NBA, you look at the professional sports cross country. All of them are starting to get that. Maybe the NFL not so much yet, but it feels like with other conferences and programs doing it, Alabama doesn't want to be left behind in that regard. And again, I think it'd be tasteful. I think that's probably the best way to say it. And we'll see what and if they do that.
Not asking you to speak for Greg Byrne, but do you think it's hey, let's not do it until we absolutely have to?
Maybe, because it is such I think a lot of fans would like to see the white helmets. That's always a popular debate, but like they stick to their guns with the uniforms. Even whenever it was several years back when Nike did like the combat uniforms, Alabama's was just sort of slightly tweaked a little bit to I guess meet Nike's needs or whatever they were doing with a bunch of teams rolling those out. So they don't really tweak their uniforms much. I do think, again, like if it's the right one, it makes sense, and it's one of those situations where you kind of have to look for it on the uniform. It doesn't just jump out to you. That would be the route that I think they would go, but you never know. I mean, this is a new age in college athletics, and you got to keep up with the Joneses, and I think Greg Byrne's pretty well aware of that, but I don't think you do anything drastic. I don't think you put the monster logo on an Alabama uniform. I'm fascinated to see, this is completely off topic, but given what the Big 12's doing, I'm fascinated to see how BYU feels about that with their caffeine deal over there. I haven't even thought about that.
Yeah, no, it's there's so many different tentacles that goes along with this sponsorship, to say the very least. So I was just curious from an Alabama and Auburn, because listen, it's the same for Auburn. We have not heard any grumblings whatsoever from down on the plains or in Tuscaloosa that they were kicking the tires on anything potentially. But it is an interesting topic as we're just weeks away from SEC football media days. So let's talk about this Alabama football team. The big story I know that everyone is going to be honed in on is not only the potential running game that they need to find, but it's the situation with the quarterbacks. As spring wrapped up, and we talked to you right after spring camp, and now that they're in summer workouts and they're doing their individual drills and their 7-on-7s with the wide receivers and things of that nature, now that you would have a better indication of where they are, But as they go into fall camp, if you were to say that there would be one guy potentially ahead of the other, would it be Mac or would it be Russell currently?
I'd still give like the slight edge to Mac just because he's been in the program for 4 years, the offensive system at least for 4 years. But I think what we saw from Keelan Russell at the end of the spring, we know that Mac had like a minor injury that last week. He didn't really finish out the 8-day scrimmage, and I think Keelan got like 9 drives to 5 or 4 for Mac. It's a situation where I think Keelan Russell really took advantage of those opportunities. And look, he's supremely talented, and I think he's eventually going to get on the field. But it wouldn't shock me to see game one, the older guy getting the start. I do think, though, that this fall camp is very important coming up, and I think they do want to aim for that second scrimmage, which is about like 2 weeks away from the season opener, to name a starter. But I don't necessarily know how they feel about, like, once they name a starter, he's the guy. That was the case with Jalen 2 years ago. It was the case with Ty last year. They named the starter, and that was basically the guy for the season, because we know Alabama names its captains before the season now. But I think it's a situation where this is a legit quarterback competition. I think Keelan Russell's made this very interesting. And look, I talked to a guy that's trained him since the 9th grade, Brad Frazier at Old School Quarterbacks, last week, and posted a story on it this week. And I know that trainers never have anything negative to say about the guys they're working with. That's a 100% hit rate just in terms of positivity. But Keelan Russell is a freak athlete. He's put on some good mass, and he's matured. And I think he's going to make this very interesting. I think we'll eventually see 12 on the field. But right now, I mean, before you get on the field for like a full team practice here, either at the end of the month or the beginning of August, I think Austin Mack still probably has a slight edge. But I think Keelan Russell is very much in this thing, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him win it.
Charlie, how much emphasis do you think is apparent to us as viewers, whether you're in the media, whether you're a fan and you watch Alabama football, the running game this fall to start the season? Do you think it will be an overwhelming emphasis on the running game, or do you think that we'll see the Alabama offense that we saw for the most part of last season?
I think they've always wanted to be balanced. I think the run game's kind of been, I don't want to say bad, but it hasn't been what it used to be really since after Jahmyr Gibbs. Like they haven't had a solid running back since Gibbs. And what I mean by that, I mean like an all SEC type runner that's going to be drafted, the first 2 days of the draft. So it's a situation where they want to be balanced, but you also have a new quarterback that you're breaking in. You have some talent at wide receiver, even though Noah Rogers isn't going to be on the field for the first month or so. It's a situation where you want to be able to run the football in any circumstance. And I think when you're throwing out essentially a new offensive line, you want to continue to build that chemistry and get those guys to gel together. And you want to establish that physicality up front. So I think it is a point of emphasis, but I do think like you also have a new quarterback out there. You don't want him just handing the ball off 30, 40 times a game. You want him to be able to get in a rhythm too. So I think it'll be pretty balanced. I think this offense has a chance to be really good. It has a chance to be special, but I think it goes as far as the guys up front, and those backs need to be able to take advantage of the opportunities when they're given to them. So I don't think we'll see just like ground and pound approach. I do think though that, this coaching staff knows it needs to be better at running the football. And so they want to establish that early on. But again, it's going to be, I think it's a really balanced approach because you got that new guy at quarterback that you're working in too. So I'm fascinated to see how it's going to look the first several games of the season, because it's not a cakewalk by any stretch, but you have some games where you can you work on some things before you get to just a juggernaut of a matchup against Georgia. Like there's going to be some challenging games out there, but I think Alabama can certainly try to establish an identity before you head into the meat of the schedule there in October.
One thing's for sure, a lot of people believe that this defense, especially the secondary, may be the best in college football. I'm talking about the secondary. But I want to ask you your opinion on the defensive line, because when you lose 4 of your top defensive linemen to either the transfer portal or the NFL draft, you have to do some heavy shopping. Your opinion on what they were able to bring in from places like Southern California, Oregon, or Mississippi State. What do you think about this defensive line? Will that be an area of concern come fall camp?
No, I think that they definitely got bigger and more physical up front. And, it sucks to lose experienced guys like Tim Keenan and LT Overton, and then you lose a guy like James Smith to Ohio State, obviously. But you bring in Terrence Green, who's a big body from Oregon. He's played some meaningful minutes at the collegiate level. Devin Tompkins is a guy that looks like $1 million, and he's a guy that you can move all around the defensive line. I'm really fascinated what they do on the edge, because that bandit position really took a hit with Overton, Keon Keeley, Jordan Renaud. Those guys all left, and so Noah Carter too. The depth at some of the edge spots got hit a little bit, and so you have Yonze Pierre coming back, and I think you could play him and Justin Hill and Desmond Umazulu on the edge, because I think they'll be pretty solid in the middle with the guys they added, bringing back London Simmons. You got some guys like Edric Hill coming back. Jeremiah Beeman should be back from injury. They've established some good depth there, but the edges is, I think, where I'm interested to see how it plays out, because if they can establish a pass rush by not having to send the house, in other words, just with the 4 guys they have up front, I think this defensive front can be really dangerous, and that can really open up things for that secondary that you mentioned, which is just one of the best in the country. So with Green, with Tompkins, with Kedrick Bingley-Jones, the guys they bring in, and the guys they bring back, I think the defensive line's in a pretty good spot. It's one that's, I wouldn't say inexperienced. It's more unproven, just because some of these guys are new. Some of these guys haven't got as many opportunities. But I think they have a lot of guys, a lot of pieces that they can rotate in there to where this could be a fun group to watch up front. Now, they have to create those lanes for those inside backers who are going to be all new too. But I think this defensive front, they addressed needs in the portal. They got bigger. They got more athletic, and I think that could pay dividends when they want to be able to rush the passer and also stop the run up front.
Charlie, I remember when Kalen Borhe got hired, in one of his comments about what kind of coach and his coaching style, and he said, I believe in player-led teams. I institute how I want things to go, but players lead each other. Who is that leadership core? Because now, not just at Alabama, it's getting tougher and tougher across college football because of the turnover that you have in the roster. Have you been able to identify who that leadership core is for Coach DeBoer and that staff?
I do think he's taken a different approach to leadership this year, and where they don't have that leadership council that they have, because they have so many new guys coming in, and then you lose all 4 captains from last year's team. I do think if they had a 5th captain last year, it would have been Bray Hubbard, just in terms of the tallies of votes that they have coming at the beginning of the season. If they had put a 5th guy out there and had a 5th guy put his hand in fingerprints at Denny Chimes, it would have been Bray. So he's kind of where you start. Offensively, it's really fascinating because you only have one returning starter in that offensive line coming back, and he's going into his sophomore season being Michael Carroll. I think it'll be interesting to see who kind of emerges there in terms of the voice and the anchor, because Parker Brailsford and Caden Proctor and some of those seniors are all gone. Quarterback obviously is one on the offensive side of the ball that steps into that leadership role. But I think Ryan Williams is someone that they need to step up as a leader, and I think he has this offseason. Defensively, you got Bray, you got Xavier Brown, you got Yonze Pierre. I think some of these transfers, one thing that Kalen DeBoer really talked about throughout the offseason in terms of the guys they brought in, like Caleb Woodson, Tompkins, Green, Umazulu, they're captain-type players. So they've not only come in and made an impact on the field, but they've been voices off of it too. So I think trying to figure out who is going to be the captains is kind of a difficult task. I think they have probably a pool of 8 to 10 or more players that could do it. But I think Bray Hubbard, it starts with him. And then I think other guys have to continue to find their voices this offseason. And that's something at Media Days here in a couple of weeks that is on my list of things to ask about, who's emerged over the course of the summer when they're doing these player-run practices, like you talked about, being that player-led team. Who are some of the voices who have spoken up? And I'll be fascinated to see what I'm assuming Bray Hubbard and Ryan Williams and maybe Xavier Brown, what they have to say.
I know this is not a very sexy topic on Bama Online, but it is when you don't have a very good field goal crew or a punt team. So I want to ask you, Connor Talty last year, shaky at best. You bring in Lorcan Quinn. You've got a new punter. You got a redshirt freshman at that position. Special teams. Should Alabama fans be concerned about the shakiness that they witnessed last year?
I think in talking to Kalen DeBoer, he seems pretty confident in it. I think with Connor Talty, he had his moments in the middle of the season, but he finished on a pretty high note. I think he made his last 4 or 5 kicks, and some of them in high pressure moments. And I was actually really impressed with talking to Connor before the Rose Bowl and how he kind of owned up to yelling at David Byrd, where everybody saw that on TV, and being booed at the stadium and things like that. So he had a really mature approach about it, and I think he holds himself to a high standard. But Lorcan Quinn's a guy, watching him in that 8A scrimmage, he has a hell of a leg, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see both of them this fall. And maybe they split up the field goal kicking, or one handles kickoffs. I don't know. I think that's something they're still trying to figure out. But I think they're in a better spot because they have options. I think they have options at punter too, because you bring back Alex Asparuhoff, who they signed and offered a scholarship a year ago, but he missed the season because of an injury. You also bring in the Watford kid from North Alabama, who put up impressive stats at UNA. They also have a new long snapper. They bring in the kid from Syracuse, Ethan Stengel. So it's a pretty much a new look crew outside of Connor Talty, and I think they can be much better punting the football and things like that. I'm really fascinated to see what they do in the return game, because they're kind of thin at wide receiver, and their top options in the return game are their wide receivers. I don't know if you want to put Latsier Brooks or Ryan Williams back there, given that you only have about 5 guys right now, just in terms of the top of the pecking order. So special teams is one. I'm going to tackle that next week in kind of our position week looks at this roster. But it's really fascinating because there's a lot of different avenues that they could go in terms of who they send out on the field. And we're still kind of, I guess, in wait and see mode in terms of what we're going to see on the field this fall.
We believe in Lorcan Quinn, just so you know.
I figured. Yeah. I mean, that's a fun story just because he's a guy that he had like a blue collar job in Ireland, and then just figured out he could kick a football, and then bang, here he is. So
Pat's been following him since his youth days there in Ireland with the Dublin Times that he gets.
Yes.
Still to this day.
I subscribe to the Dublin Times, and he's been mentioned many times. Yeah.
Yes.
I'll lean on you as the expert in that field.
Yes, go to Pat. Everything you need to know on Lorcan Quinn, Pat's got it.
Oh, my goodness. That is Charlie Potter. And we didn't ask you anything about the Braves? I mean, Landrum's been in the doldrums because of the Braves recently, but,
it's tough.
Hey, man, look, it's one of those things where I love the Braves, but I put zero self-worth into it. My life is immensely better because of it. So maybe you should try that out.
Yeah, Landrum. You should listen to Charlie.
No, it's the only thing. It's the only thing that
Don't
I
say
still
it's the
have
only
a
thing.
hang up. I'm praying through it.
Okay.
I know there's bigger things, but it's something I enjoy, and I don't enjoy it when they lose.
Well, most fans don't.
Yeah.
That goes with Alabama fans, too, when it comes to football. So
absolutely.
All right, Charlie, thanks, man. Stay cool down in Tuscaloosa, and we'll catch up with you again soon.
Thanks, Charlie.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. That's Charlie Potter from Bama Online. You can follow his work there at BamaOnline.com, part of the On3 network. He joined us on the Higginbotham Hotline. Higginbotham is your one-source solution for insurance, financial, and HR services.
We will continue. A lot of your texts rolling in on the text line. Still got a lot of great responses on the SEC and corporate sponsorship patches and what Charlie just told us. All of that and more. 3-Man Front continues on Jocks.
It is 12:22. Appreciate Charlie Potter joining the program, talking Alabama football. We will talk about Auburn Tigers at 12:30. Nathan King from Auburn Undercover will join the program as we'll talk to him about what he anticipates will be the big storylines as we are just weeks away from fall camp. We are 52 days away from kickoff, just under 2 weeks away from SEC football media days. I got a lot of texts this morning from a lot of our brethren around the Southeastern Conference who are excited about Tampa. It's that time of the year where, you've already got your preseason magazines. You've already gone through those. Now you're sitting there going, I got to get to Tampa, got to get ready to see Landrum there in St. Pete, going to possibly a Tampa Bay Rays game together.
Yes, all of that. Just keep going.
Oh,
That steakhouse that has all those
Yes.
nice bottles of wine that you can
Yes.
smoke a cigar in.
yes, all that.
Let's do it all.
Yes, we're doing it all. Doing it all in less than 2 weeks.
You can take a tour of Tropicana
Yes.
and go look at the old roof there in the scrapyard.
Yes.
See how that thing went down.
That would be fantastic.
Conrad, do you feel better after Charlie breaking it down a little bit of a different angle from an Alabama set of eyes?
Yeah, I mean, I think Charlie said a lot of. I think he did a great job of, laying the foundation of what the year's going to look like. But I think a lot of what he said, and I don't fault him for saying it at all, is there's just a lot of things that are unknown, right? Even going with the quarterback thing, like, yeah, I think it's perfectly fair to think that Austin Mack's going to be the guy right now. But I think a lot of Alabama fans, you want to believe that it's going to be Keelan Russell because you want to believe that he's going to be as good as you've been told that he is for a year and a half now and things like that. It's just there are a lot of questions.
Well, and I asked a question about the leadership because I do remember Kalen DeBoer saying that when he was hired about being player-led and the leadership councils that they've had, and especially last season, as Charlie mentioned. But this day and age, if you can find that guy or that group of guys that's got that different makeup that wants to take it's a big part of keeping those locker rooms somewhat sane because they're upside down a lot of times. So where is that buy-in? Do you have that group of guys? And because of the turnover and losses and defections and guys going on to the NFL, it's tougher to come by.
Yeah, and that's where you hope that,
He said Ryan Coleman Williams.
I was about to say, and I know DeBoer's talked about him a lot this offseason of somebody that stepped up and put in a lot of work, but also from a leadership standpoint, like a Bray Hubbard, someone that's been there for a while. You've got some of those guys that are still around the program, but a lot of it is also going to come from the quarterback spot. That's where a lot of leadership comes through, and we talk about this a lot with a lot of different teams, right? The players typically gravitate towards the guy, right? And that will become apparent if it hasn't already in the locker room over the course of the early parts of the season and through fall camp of that they know the guy that's got the juice on the field, and that's who they'll gravitate towards, and that's who will be the quarterback.
Charlie was talking about Keelan Russell putting on good muscle weight.
Mm-hmm.
I'm anxious to see him when fall camp begins because, listen, I've been fortunate. I've known a lot of high school kids that have ended up playing in Alabama under Nick Saban and Kalen DeBoer, and the transformation where, they weren't chopped liver when they were in high school. But when you get to a program like Alabama and you start eating right and you start working out more and
they have a diet that's designed just for your body.
Yes. And it's amazing the transformation. And to see what Keelan Russell looked like when he came to Alabama, very thin.
Yeah.
And being able to put on the proper weight and the muscle, that's got to excite a lot of fans because, as we know, you need that to be able to withstand the punishment that you are going to take in the Southeastern Conference as a quarterback.
Yeah. You saw it with your quarterback last year.
I saw the quote that I saw on Keelan Russell, and it was somebody quoted, once he gets on the field, he's not coming off. That's a pretty cool quote to have attached to you.
Yeah.
I mean, I just go back to last year being in the press box and talking to people that were more familiar with those guys and that information than we were, and it was that's the dude you don't let him leave. He will be the guy. It was not it is a he will be the guy.
And I listen, and I've said it on this program, and the information that I was told leading up through the spring, the people that told me that they thought that Austin Mack was going to transfer, but to credit to him, because Austin Mack did not leave, that he looked at the competition. He followed DeBoer from Seattle, and he has been in that program. And listen, I mean, it's a coin flip to a lot of people who's going to be your starting quarterback down there. So kudos for Austin Mack for not leaving the program. He didn't run away from the competition. He's down there, and heck, he might end up winning the competition. I firmly believe it will be Keelan Russell when it's all said and done. But once again, kudos to Austin Mack for sticking around. And listen, for everything that went wrong in the Rose Bowl, he was the one part of the Rose Bowl that you could actually walk away and go, you know what?
Yeah,
that was positive.
Yeah. And the Austin Mack that you saw in the limited amount But the one that you saw in the spring game, that is not the Austin Mack.
No, he was dinged up.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was hurt.
That is not the defining representation of who Austin Mack is as a quarterback.
But when the season began, I was told by multiple people that he would be one of the first people in the transfer portal.
We heard that last year, too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what I meant last year.
Oh, yeah.
Last year.
Yeah.
But didn't happen.
No. And look, whether he's first or he's second, he's going to be, I'm sure, very fairly compensated for being there in whatever role he's serving.
I would think so. And with the way that their schedule shapes up, too, you're probably going to see both of them.
And so that's a different aspect that we should be thinking more about, that there is a monetary side. It's not just for the love of the old university.
No, there's a monetary side. And it would be tough. And I was thinking about the balancing act of we think it's Keelan Russell, but you've got to have that other. What if it's not? He comes out deer in the headlights. Well, we got Austin Mack, but you have to do something that's going to keep Austin Mack around, because I'm sure that he was offered more money to go somewhere else in the state of Alabama.
Do you think that they got the same amount of money? Like both of the quarterbacks that said, hey, we like both of you. We think it's going to be a great competition. We want you to both be here.
I don't think they discuss between the two. They can share if they want, if their own little deals. But
probably.
No, I don't think they probably do that. My guess would be Russell will get a little bit more.
All right, we're going to talk some Auburn football next. Nathan King from Auburn Undercover joins us on Three Man Front. It is 12:34. Welcome back in. We are just a couple of weeks away from SEC football media days. Obviously, a lot of conversation about this Auburn football team. We'll get into a little bit about the recruiting and the hot streak that Alex Golesh and his staff has been on. But let's bring in Nathan King from Auburn Undercover, who joins us now. Nathan, I hope the summer has gone well for you, buddy.
It has been great. Hope you guys are doing well.
We are doing fantastic. Getting ready for SEC football media days, just less than 2 weeks away. But one thing is for sure, unfortunately for you, you have covered a lot of different head coaches and a lot of changes on the Plains over the course of the last few years. But if you could compare and contrast, let's just take from Hugh Freeze when he started on the Plains and Alex Golesh and his staff, kind of compare and contrast those two starts for these two staffs.
Yeah, I mean, the fantastic question, because that's really what you look at. I mean, I don't remember properly where Freeze had Auburn at this point heading into his first season, but obviously they did a really good job getting a good recruiting class that first time around, and their second recruiting class as well. So it doesn't really matter when you do it, as long as you finish, around the top 10, which obviously Freeze got Auburn to do those first couple years. I mean, the big difference is just the style of coach that you've hired, right? I mean, Freeze, that was his strength. Everybody knew that he recruited really well at Ole Miss. The biggest question was it going to translate to modern SEC success? Like, this guy won in the SEC a decade ago. Does that mean his offense can still work in the 2020s? Obviously, the answer to that question was no. On the other hand, you've got a guy in Alex Golesh to where I think if you ask a lot of Auburn fans, it feels like maybe he's a bit ahead of schedule in terms of his recruiting prowess right now. But not necessarily regarded as an elite recruiter like Hugh Freeze was. Instead, for Golesh, the draw for him was, hey, he's a young coach who's got a system that's worked the last few years. He's got an exciting offense. Maybe he can turn Auburn into a competent offense, which obviously they haven't been in quite some time. So you're sort of contrasting the different styles of coaching with those guys. I think Freeze was very expected, what he did on the recruiting trail early on for Auburn. Alex Golesh, maybe a bit unexpected, maybe a bit unexpected for him to have the number 8 recruiting class in the country right now. I think maybe you thought that was something that was going to take a bit longer. At the same time, we'll see where we are in December, right? It's all that matters is what happens come signing day. But right now the Tigers are in a good position right there, and it gives them a bit of a off the field momentum boost, because obviously it's a dead period all the way up until the season, so they can kind of carry that recruiting momentum all the way up until media days and the start of fall camp.
And you've covered different coaches in your career and there at Auburn, Nathan, but Alex Golesh, can you sense a quiet confidence about him, about maybe the roster that he knows that he has heading into his first season? Any tells there that you've been able to pick up on?
Yeah, I think, and this really speaks more to just who Golesh is as a coach overall. He's got a blend of confidence in what he's done, right? Confidence in his system and what he's done so far as a coach in his career. That's about half of it. And the other half is, I think he's kind of got this humility to him. He's got a humble approach right now. He would be the first to say, I don't know everything about being a head coach. I've only been a head coach for a few years. I don't know everything about being in the SEC. I was only in the SEC for a couple years. And so I think that's the thing with him is sort of blending those two things. He is a confident guy. Like he sort of exudes that. You can tell from conversations with him and knowing who he is in that Auburn building. But in terms of a quiet confidence, I think that's probably the right way to put it. More just a quiet, comfortability with this team is probably what they're feeling in that Auburn building, because beyond what they have on the roster, having your 4-year starting quarterback in Byron Brown, that helps. That makes you feel more confident and comfortable. But having your play caller, that doesn't happen very often in college sports. Having a 4-year play caller in Joel Gordon, who's going to be with the same quarterback for 4 years, and then obviously having the same head coach mixed in there, there's just a lot of comfort and a lot of familiarity. And so I know we've talked about it many times this offseason, but all those things sort of come together to, if you're Auburn, hopefully speed up the year one process, maybe create less of a year zero, less of a transition period. I don't know how many games Auburn is going to win this season, but I do think, you asked about Golish and the coaching staff, I do think within that building there is a confidence level of, hey, we know what we're doing. We'll see how it works. We'll see how these guys translate to the SEC. We'll see how the schedule works out. We'll see how they perform in the games. But there is confidence in that building that those players know how to play in this system. They know what they're doing. They know this coaching staff. They know what they're supposed to be doing, on a play-to-play basis. And so I don't think you necessarily had that early on under Hugh Freeze. It was very apparent in his first season. It only took that second game at Cal to realize, this offense has no idea what it is. And that's why, Golish talks so much about the word identity. That's going to be big for them this season.
Do you think it's a fair criticism for those? I do radio shows around the Southeastern Conference, and they always point to the fact that, yes, there's 13 players that followed Golish to Auburn, but will that translate to the Southeastern Conference? And I always want to point out, well, Auburn's not the only school that gets transfer portal kids.
Trinidad Chambliss was
exactly
at Ferris State.
Exactly. That's my point. So my question to you, Nathan, is that a fair criticism to say that Auburn may not be that good this year because these guys have not been in the trenches of the Southeastern Conference?
It's a fair question, and I think it's the number one question you have to point to, because other than that, what are you going to say about this Alex Golish offense? If you look at it at face value at USF, it was really good. Byron Brown is one of only 12 players in the history of college football to throw for 3,000 yards and rush for another 1,000. He was really, really good last year. So what is the criticism or critique that you're going to wonder about? It's just, will it work in the SEC? Will it work, at Auburn? I think if Alex Golish had stayed at USF, let's say, the thought experiment of he keeps all these players, he keeps Byron Brown for another season, what would you be saying about USF? You'd be talking about them as a G5 playoff contender, right? You'd be saying, well, they've got all these pieces and they've got Golish again, they got Byron Brown again. They're maybe a favorite to make the playoff as a team out of the American Conference. Now you sort of shift those expectations and shift the conversation of, how good can they be against SEC competition? I think it's a very fair, maybe not criticism, but, question mark about this team this season. And most of it pertains to the offense. 11 of those 13 guys come over from USF are on the offensive side of the ball. I don't really have that many questions about this Auburn defense. I do personnel wise, but DJ Durkin has got them to finish in the top 20 of SP Plus in each of the last 2 seasons. He's earned the benefit of the doubt. We know he's really good as a defensive coordinator. They'll figure it out on that side of the ball. So it's all about just how good Byron Brown can be. But I do think the big thing, and you see it across the sport nowadays with Eric Morris is doing it at Oklahoma State. Guys are following their former coach. It happens all the time. Of course, the gold standard is Curt Cignetti when he came over from JMU. But I do think it raises the floor for this offense. I really cannot see a reality where they just feel incompetent and feel out of sorts. Again, the point of your question, they may be overmatched. They may not quite have the personnel just yet to be really good in year one, but are they going to feel clunky and out of sorts and they don't know what they're doing? That's where I would be really surprised if we're talking about that when it comes to this offense.
Nathan King, Auburn Undercover, joining us here on 3-Man Front on the Higginbotham Hotline. You talked about the defensive side of the ball, and personnel would be your only questions. I want to start up front on the defensive line. You got transfers coming in. You got younger guys that have been in the system like your Jordan Crawfords. How does that look up front this year compared to what we saw last year from DJ Durkin in that group?
Yeah, truthfully, if you just look at it face value, they've lost 4 starters along the defensive line. Keldrick Falk and Kieron Crawford on the edges, defensive end and edge rusher, both NFL draft picks. Bobby Jamison-Travis was their nose tackle. He was an underrated player for them last year, and then you saw that because he was a 6th-round pick in the NFL draft. And then their starter at 3-tech, defensive tackle Malik Blockton, makes a surprising decision after his older brother played at Auburn, and he started at Auburn for 2 years, makes the surprising decision to transfer to LSU. So it's a pretty full-scale rebuild there up front. The main thing with those guys is you've got a lot of interesting pieces. You've got a lot of guys that have done it at other places. You got Deshaun Womack, who was a 5-star recruit at LSU, played a lot last season, was pretty good at Ole Miss. You've got Jared Smith, was a 5-star recruit. He's going to be the Keyron Crawford replacement there. At edge rusher, you mentioned Jordan Crawford. How about Malik Autry, another former 5-star recruit there at defensive tackle? Cody Sigler is an Arkansas State transfer who was just nuts last season with how well he produced there.
How did he look in the spring to you, Nathan, the Sigler kid?
Sigler was great. He was one of their most consistent players along the defensive line. So everything I just talked about is on paper very good. None of those guys have done it in an orange and blue jersey. Not a single person I just mentioned has proven much of anything wearing an Auburn jersey. So that is the biggest question. Can all of it translate? Can it all come together? I think you're helped by the fact you have an All-American linebacker in Xavier Atkins. Like, he can kind of help to take that load off. They're definitely going to lean on the linebackers this season. They're definitely going to lean on them, as opposed to last year it was the defensive line. And then Xavier Atkins kind of came on late in the season. But yeah, you're always wondering about the trenches. I have an equal number of question marks about the offensive line as well. Maybe the way that they play on offense can kind of mitigate that. Maybe the strengths of this defense can kind of mitigate their defensive line. But I do think they've got a lot of potential, but they've really got to show it to me, because there's not a lot of guys on that D-line who have proven much.
All right, Nathan. So last year, as we were at this point in time during the year leading up to the SEC football media days, we talked about, okay, it's going to be interesting because the Oklahoma week, that Oklahoma game in Norman, that's going to be kind of the test pattern to see if this Auburn football team is going to be what we think it may be. This year, it's kind of a week earlier. It's the Florida game as they come to Jordan-Hare Stadium. Do you agree that that's going to be the first litmus test to see what the potential ceiling could be for this team? Because if you knock off Florida at home, and looking at the schedule with Vanderbilt, and then heck, the thinking about Tennessee is possibly doable. How good could this football team be if they get that win at home against the Florida Gators?
Yeah, it's a big one. It's the really big game early on in the season. Getting a night game at Jordan-Hare Stadium as well for Florida was really, really big. Of course, there's going to be a lot of buildup because John Sumrall and Alex Golesh, we'll be watching their careers together, right? Like, they'll kind of be tied together because obviously Sumrall was so close to taking the Auburn job. But I agree that it'll be the first real look at just how good Auburn can be, because, and I could be completely wrong about this, I don't think Baylor's very good. DJ Lagway can maybe do some things with them on offense, but they are going to be so god-awful on defense, I don't think it's going to matter. Like, I really don't. I've got Auburn by 2 touchdowns in that game, and so I think, Florida's going to be the first real test for them. And then Vandy the next week, like you mentioned, if they beat Florida, you've got a real opportunity to start 4-0. You really do. And again, I could be wrong about Baylor. We're still a long way away, and we'll see how that game goes. But the schedule really lines up early on in the season for you to build some momentum. I would caution people. I was talking last week on CBS Sports about a potential trap game, and everybody looks at Mississippi State late in the year, and I would agree that sort of fits the bill of a classic trap game. People got to remember Vanderbilt has built themselves into a very good program. Like, Clarkley is still there. He didn't go to Penn State. He didn't go to Auburn. Like, he is still a really, really good head coach in the SEC. I know they don't have Diego Pavia anymore, but there's no reason to believe that Auburn is a better program than Vanderbilt this year. Like, our recent history tells us otherwise, just because the game is going to be in Auburn. So that'll be an interesting one the week after Florida. But yeah, definitely night game, 6:00, ESPN, primetime, under the lights, John Sumrall coming to town. First real opportunity. Also playing an old Auburn rival in Florida. It's going to feel good, for people who, watched this team back in the 90s and, when that was a prominent rival for them. And so definitely the biggest game early on in the season, and probably a game where we're going to learn a lot, because that Florida defense, probably pretty solid. We'll learn a lot about what Auburn can be as an offense.
What a commentary that would be on Auburn football if Alex Golesh gets recognized, Nathan, as an Auburn man after a win over Vanderbilt. That would be fitting.
Absolutely. That's a referendum on the year 2026, I think.
Well, Nathan, listen, always great to catch up with you. So happy that SEC Football Media Days is less than 2 weeks away, and then camp will be starting right after that. You can follow Nathan and Jason Caldwell, Christian Clemente, all the great people there at Auburn Undercover, part of the 247 Network. Nathan, always a pleasure, my friend. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Nathan.
Yes, sir. Appreciate y'all. Talk to y'all later.
Thank you so much. That is Nathan King. Joined us on the Higginbotham Hotline. Higginbotham is your one-source solution for insurance, financial, and HR services.
Some of the things, the takeaways, what Nathan just told us, your text as well. Three-Man Front continues on this Wednesday.
After the season, he knew that if he tried to come up with money to pay him, we're not going to have enough to have in those other positions. Wished him good luck, and that was it.
Did you tamper with any quarterbacks when you started looking for quarterbacks?
Yeah, 4 games.
Silly, pointing the finger at tampering. No coach, don't point the finger. No coach in America, do not. It goes back to Pat saying that all coaches are liars. All coaching staffs are tampering. Bottom line.
He says tampering happens no matter how you finish the season for everybody. If you've got a good player, people are going to contact him. It's just how things are right now. Everybody's got agents. And so the players never does it. It's all about the agents. They don't really talk to anybody. The agents do all the talking, and they talk to the GMs out of the recruiting people.
So how does this relate to what did you know about Brendan Sorsby and his gambling addiction?
Yeah, I'm trying to get down to that portion.
Coach.
If he did answer that. They said that Cincinnati still has an active lawsuit against Sorsby to collect $1 million, part of the exit fee for his departure. Cincinnati has received that letter of inquiry from the NCAA regarding the investigation into Sorsby's gambling, according to someone briefed on the matter who spoke on the condition not to disclose their name. This is not unexpected given the news and details about Sorsby's gambling allegations. Satterfield would not comment on, but he did reiterate the school stance that it was unaware of Sorsby's previous betting on Indiana football as a team member there or betting on Cincinnati men's basketball while at the University of Cincinnati. So there's your answer.
Yeah, I would stick to your story then.
But I think the headline there is Satterfield says that Texas Tech was tampering with Sorsby 4 games before the end of the season. That's your headline.
Yeah, we did it, but look over there. Look at what they did. Tampering. Give me a break. More three-man front. The much anticipated 4th and final hour. We got Pat Ponders, the worst thing I've seen. More of your great responses on the text line. If the SEC was entering a corporate partnership with a company, who should the company be? All those SEC patches. What would they look like? More three-man front.
Scrolling with Haley.
I am Haley Carania. I scroll with the homies here in the live chat because there's a lot to scroll through on X, on Instagram, on TikTok.
Cutting through the clutter, one hot take at a time.
Love seeing you all in the chat before the show. I tried to jump in just a few minutes before to say hello. I love the chat interaction. Thank you for helping. But I do it to get all of the videos and all of the content that you won't find anywhere else.
Scrolling with Haley.
Just search that up and I will be there.
Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Jim Rome takes on sports.
Part of what makes this show is the show within the show. The biggest topic on the show always seems to be the show itself. This is a way to give you clones a way to interact with one another. Yes, we will be going through the chat. Yes, it'll be a part of the program. The only thing that could ruin the show are the old school clones spitting up the same bull crap that they always have. The jungle is out taking names and ready to dominate. Let's get it.
The Jim Rome Show podcast. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.